This building right here causes an incredible amount of conflict within me. Let me explain. This field right here was the site of Pickett's Charge, one of the biggest actions in the Civil War. Thousands of men lost their lives right here. It was one of the turning points in the Battle of Gettysburg and the Civil War in general. Men suffered and died right here. This is the place, and this right here was General Pickett's buffet and battle theater. Right here, right on the edge of the battlefield, basically looking out from the front porch at the National Cemetery where the soldiers still lie at rest, who bled and died on these fields, and of course, the scene of Pickett's Charge itself. So you have the incredible story, tragic story of Pickett's Charge, and then General Pickett's buffet right next door. Well, as you can see, General Pickett's buffet is now closed up these days. Soon this land will be restored to its battlefield condition, much like all the land out on the battlefield that used to have motels, amusement parks, even a Stuckey's was out there directly on the battlefield itself. And General Pickett's buffet, like many of those other sites, was purchased by the American Battlefield Trust. Soon it'll just be KFC and McDonald's on the edge of the battlefield. And this is what the American Battlefield Trust does all over the United States, and why I am proud to be a member, a donor, a supporter, whatever the correct terminology is. And I'm sure they'd love to get their hands eventually on KFC, the Lincoln Links mini golf course, the McDonald's, Friendly's over here. Again, these are sitting all directly across the street from sort of restored battlefield land, gazing directly once again up at the National Cemetery up there. And then just 5 doors down from the edge of the battlefield is this, the Lincoln Train Museum, featuring a simulated train ride experience on the Lincoln funeral train. I don't believe there's any actual historic Lincoln trains inside. However, there are model trains, dioramas. There's a gift shop in there, of course. Some Gettysburg battlefield artifacts. A caboose. I think we can all appreciate a good caboose. And the building itself is designed to look like the historic train station in downtown Gettysburg, or at least I believe that's the intention. It's not quite a tourist trap per se, but it is one of those somewhat wacky attractions that you find in these historical towns like this. You know, in the sense that you can take a couple of private collections, find a little hook, a little gimmick, like the Lincoln funeral train like that, and sort of open up a place that's not directly relevant to the battle, but sort of, you know, on the fringe. Look, my Random Land friends, at what is sitting in front of the front door. It turns out the old Lincoln Train Museum is for sale, which makes me wonder, is this one of the properties that perhaps somebody like the American Battlefield Trust will acquire, and then, because it's just 5 doors down from the battlefield, and of course sitting directly across from it, transform back into sort of virgin 1863 looking farmland? The answer is, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Lincoln Train Museum specifically, but this highlights the war within myself. I love history. I love battlefield restoration. When I go to an ancient battlefield, I want to be able to picture it just like it was during the battle, right? So obviously, I'm a supporter of battlefield preservation, but at the same time, I am not only a huge fan of roadside attractions, but also the sort of commercialization, that sort of commercial history of America, from that sort of heyday of the American road trip, the American entrepreneurial spirit, and programmatic architecture. That's architecture where something's built to look like something else, usually a duck or a chicken or a frog or a giant teapot. You know, just think of the Bulldog Cafe from The Rocketeer. This isn't quite that, but it's a modern building built to look like an old train station, so close enough. Basically, I love things built to look like other things. And so the fate of the Lincoln Train Museum right there definitely causes a conflict within me. I'll tell you that much right now. Anyway, good morning. My name is Justin, and we are back in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for the second day of the Gettysburg Film Festival. It kicked off yesterday, unveiling some never-before-seen artifacts at the Beyond the Battle Museum. There were lectures, luminaries, celebrities, fancy people, and then there was me. And it's time for day 2, which should be even bigger, better, and busier in terms of the program. And now that I've had my morning coffee and literally got with the program, I'm a lot less confused. I've never been to one of these things before, and it turns out having the schedule is actually very useful. There's book signings, lectures by historians and authors. There's obviously films at the film festival as well. but all sorts of other activities, fun-tivities, peripheral meetings. Peripheral? Guess I need a little more morning coffee. But anyway, before we get back into the film festival, I've come to the other side of Gettysburg, just across from the comfort suites I usually stay at when I am in town, to highlight just one more success of the American Battlefield Trust, because literally right across this road from the hotel, between the cemetery and the battlefield back there where Culp's Hill is, just beyond those trees, right where you see that parking lot, or what's left of that parking lot out there, there was a massive brick building out here. The last time I was here, which was just 6 or 7 months ago, for years and years, there was this big war museum out here. Not a Civil War museum, just a war museum. A lot of World War II stuff. It's an interesting place, a cool place, but totally blocked the view of the hill and the battlefield and the woods from the Baltimore Pike, which is the road I'm standing on right here. And look at that. Not only was the land acquired by the American Battlefield Trust, but demolition was completed very, very quickly. And other than the driveway and this old brick planter here that was home to the sign for the military museum, nothing remains. There's a sort of modern house on the property, and I can see one big old anti-aircraft looking gun out there, or some kind of piece of artillery back on the property. I'm sure that's hard for you guys to see, but look at this. There was a big, gigantic, multi-story brick building right there that is now gone. Look at that view of the battlefield will be preserved forever. Same thing goes for this house on the corner right here, basically right next door to where the old war museum was. This was also acquired by the American Battlefield Trust and restored to its 1860s condition. They've now totally transformed this part of the old battlefield, which as you can see is right across the street from the Evergreen Cemetery, the town cemetery, and there were guns and soldiers up in the cemetery. Fighting was happening all across this road. Cannons were firing, artillery shells were flying through the air. And like I said, it's right off the Baltimore Pike, the old main historic road from Baltimore to Gettysburg. And if you were driving up that road in the past, you would have no idea that there's a whole lot more battlefield that was all blocked by modern buildings. And now it'll be able to be seen and enjoyed. They've almost linked the town itself, where obviously there was a lot of the battle fought, and this portion of the battlefield. All they got to do now is get rid of the comfort suites. Whew, that might take a while. All right, now we're gonna go from the Civil War and jump way back in time to the Revolutionary War. Not only because the American Battlefield Trust preserves Revolutionary War battlefields as well, but because that is the theme of this year's Gettysburg Film Festival, because it is, after all, 2026 America's 250th birthday, which is why these guys are camped out at the high school. This is the thing I've been looking forward to more than any other thing. There is a Revolutionary War era living history camp out here in Gettysburg for the film festival. And while that may be kind of common on the East Coast, where I'm from, Southern California, we don't see a lot of these guys. Dude, yes. This is awesome. Look how many reenactors we've got out here. This is incredible. Looks like we got some men drilling out here, learning how to fight the British. A couple of tents, we got a couple of lady reenactors out here, and we've even got a parson. Look at that. This is so freaking cool. Dude, my shoes are already soaked. I can't even imagine what it's like to stay out here in a canvas tent in the wet. Then you think of all the soldiers that really had to do that in the rain, the sleet, the snow, with all their gear and supplies. This is so cool. Got Chris and Hank out here that I met yesterday at the Beyond the Battle Museum. They've gone far beyond the Battle of Gettysburg, but not forward in time, backwards in time. One thing I noticed right away is just how many different kinds of uniforms, different colors everyone's wearing. Was there ever a standard uniform for the Continental Army? Did they ever get there?
They did establish uniform standards, and one of the biggest problems throughout the war is that the Continental Congress kind of establishes it early on, and then very quickly divvies it up to the colonies, which then eventually become the states.
Right.
So then it became the states' problems to figure out how to uniform their soldiers. And so they kind of established this color scheme and what was to be issued, everything from the basic equipment that would go into it, and then the uniform, the clothing itself.
Yeah, because I see you're wearing brown and green and a little bit of oranginess. You've got just mostly brown. You're all earth tones over here, Chris.
So this would be my my civilian attire from home.
Okay, so this is
So
like
this is
your
typical
militia outfit. And then was this like a uniform from the day?
Yeah, so this is uniform compiled on the descriptions from the 1st Pennsylvania Battalion. They
Okay.
were raised in 1775. They go and fight up in Canada. Their uniform was manufactured in Philadelphia by different contractors there. And of course, they're paying on contract on credit.
Right.
And so, of course, you can only imagine just how much effort was being put into the materials and the manufacturing. But they did have a standard. There was a uniform. They wanted them to appear like
Yeah,
soldiers.
because that's what I think of over there, a little bit more like the general over here. And when you see old paintings and stuff, right, they're all in the blue with a little bit of red. But I
Right.
imagine it wasn't really like that. And like you were talking about people losing their spoons and their kettles and their food. They must have lost articles of clothing along the way, too, when it was hot.
Right.
Like, I don't want to carry this jacket.
And I mean, everything's hand sewn back then, so there's only so much tension that you can keep on the thread and the fabric.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you know, you wear out clothes every day in the 21st century. So back then, especially
Wear
soldiering.
the same clothes every day.
Yeah. Well, I do that anyway, so I'd be okay with that part. But they're not exactly waterproof, right? Is it mostly linen and
Correct.
wool?
Yeah. So there's no synthetics. It's all linen, cottons, and especially wools. And of course, you know, layering system just like today. It's important to keep your body regulated in that sense.
So it'll stay dry for a while because you've got the layers, but once you're soaked down, you're soaked.
Wet.
There's
And
no
you're just-
rubber
Yeah.
waterproofing or
Right.
anything.
If you're lucky, you have leather shoes, but I imagine those wore out too.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, they start
He'll
to-
show you, like, that's typical.
Oh, look at that!
They do start to blow out.
You're ready for action. Yeah, and you got no socks.
No.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's one of the
You
most
think,
common
like,
things.
So these men left in 1775 in October with Benedict Arnold as one of their commanders on this expedition to attack Quebec
Right.
and retake Canada, or the military installation there.
We should have got
which
it,
would have
too.
brought Canada in as the 14th colony.
Yes.
And that would have brought a lot of manpower because the French Canadians, they had no love for.
It's not
the
too late for
British.
you guys, Canada, though. I'm just putting that out there. You know, they could join anytime.
So of course they go all the way. They go up through the wilds of Maine.
Yeah.
Is it a battalion or a division that follows them, like a rear guard? They're supposed to be the supply train, the resupply train. For one reason or another, they can't make it. They can't continue on because of attrition or illness. So they're not going to push the supplies back to the army that's traveling through Maine. So by the time they get to Quebec, it's December, and a blizzard hits, and they're positioned for this attack. But by now, the jig is up. The British are fully defended.
Oh, no.
And as you could guess, it doesn't go according to plan.
And this is
'cause the
early in the war,
Americans,
so it's just going to
they
get...
end up being wounded, captured.
Yeah. It's just going to get worse
they
and worse in
retreat
terms of
down.
supplies, right?
Right, yeah, because you have the main expedition, and then you have the other section of the army that came up through Montreal to attack from that direction. And it ends up being a siege that lasts all the way up until May of 1776.
That's
so
insane.
while Boston falls in March of 76, and the British evacuate on St. Patrick's Day, which they celebrated this year down there. There's still that active campaign up there in Quebec, and they're sitting in 4 or 5 feet of snow.
No, that's insane. In this stuff, if you're lucky. Fully clothed in this. So you never get dry, you never get warm.
Yeah, well, even in the American Civil War, like you research that and you read accounts and you realize that they would literally, like, if they were caught marching and it's a horrendous downpour, you're just stuck in it, whether you carry a poncho or not. So imagine like us being caught. You don't have time to stop it. Oh,
No.
get in undercover. A lot of times in the Revolution, troops would, even though these are waterproof pouches, the near hurricane type storms would just saturate your cartridges. You would actually spread out on rocks where they literally would spread out and open up the cartridges and
try and dry the
out
gunpowder? Wow.
And then they would rewrap them for use again. So everything, because powder was so precious.
So then you might have had guys blowing off their fingers and doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, Yeah, I mean, everything is done under orders and commands.
We're so soft and safe now.
Oh, and accidents would happen.
Yeah, look at this. Speaking of different colored uniforms, at first when these guys rode up on their horses, I thought, are they British or something? Probably just because they have nice uniforms, fancy hats over here. And Chris down there told me, no, this is an American unit right here. But he goes, sometimes the British would also wear green. So apparently our guys would wear green, they would wear brown, they would wear blue, they would also wear red. Look at the red right there. So my question is, how in the world do you know who to shoot at? Dude, that is amazing right there. This is some serious commitment. I don't know what it costs to take care of a horse, then to have all this historic accoutrement. The dedication for these guys, that's awesome. These guys are displaying some wares down here. The stuff that soldiers would carry on their backs, in their blankets. He just said all this stuff would be rolled up on his back.
Their clothing. You have here what's called a hunting shirt. It's a very cheap and affordable and very breathable uniform. It's perfect in the summer. In the weather right now, it's all right, but in winter, not a chance. It's like I said, it's very cheap to make. It's very easy to make. It's basically just a giant rectangle with holes in it. And General Washington actually would have wanted the majority of the army outfitted in this due to how easy it is and how cheap it is to make.
Look at this on this little lean-to here. We've got the Declaration of Independence, some other notices, some desertion notices, and look at this, money. I don't think there was all that much of that going around during the Revolution. That was part of the problem, right? Hard to pay the soldiers, hard to pay your suppliers. That's a big deal. Ooh, and then there's another tent with, I don't know what. Ooh, the Pennsylvania Navy.
Over there in the Army, we're part of the Pennsylvania Navy. Our job is, of course, they call a brown water Navy, which is to say we don't go out into the open sea. We remain on the Delaware rivers, of course, a river on which our capital, fair capital Philadelphia, is set. And as the British have interest in taking our fair capital, it's the responsibility of this Navy to stop them from doing so. We are, of course, a state Navy, which means we are not supplied by the Continental Congress. We get all of the leftovers that we haven't sent to the Army. So everything we have is essentially secondhand. We're going to use all of that to stop the British from coming up the Delaware there. And you can see on some of those images that we have. They make their first attempt in 1776, and we stop them with a series of what are called row galleys, which are these here. They're small. You can come right on up and take a look. Don't worry, don't mind me. Those row galleys are small. You can fit an 18-pounder gun on them, though, so they're quite maneuverable and below where most of those British frigates could aim their guns. The other kind of craft we have there is what's called a floating battery. And that's it there. It literally just looks like a dock that's been pulled away from shore, and we'll put several pieces of artillery on that and be able to fire at them from, again, a low to the water position so they can't really hit us. These are what are called chevaux de frise. Can you say that? Chevaux de frise. That's a French word, a million-pound word. Essentially what they are big boxes, 25 foot square, with a massive pike sticking out of the middle of it. Think of a telephone pole that's been sharpened to a point and capped with a metal piece. Now what they can do is at low tide they'll end up being about 2 feet below the water level, which is all well and good for us because those row galleys have a draft, which means that's how much of the boat is under the water. We have a draft of only 12 inches, so we can sail right over those chevaux de frise. The British vessels cannot. On a great day, we'll punch a hole through their hull and they'll begin to sink.
So is this a gun for a ship then?
Yes,
right
that's
here?
what's called a swivel gun. As it is mounted in this log here, as it would have been mounted along the deck of a vessel. That could be anything as small as the row galley to something as large as a British frigate or man of war. A small gun like that is easy to move, and we call it a swivel gun, of course, because it can move 100 degrees. It loads and fires the exact same way as the larger pieces. I tend to like the swivel gun as an anti-personnel weapon, which is to say it's quicker to load and fire grape shot or case shot out of it to clear the deck of an enemy vessel. So it's good for pre-boarding. If you're about to jump on ship. And here's a good line.
See, I never thought I'd come out to Gettysburg and then be learning about the Continental Navy. I never even thought about there being a brown Navy. A navy for the rivers. Streams and creeks, I guess. My mind is just being blown by the horses out here and all the different uniforms. I can't get over the uniform thing. Hello there.
Hello, sir.
Do we have a reverend here, the parson?
Yes,
What do we?
I am, yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so I'm actually representing the Continental Army as a chaplain.
Oh, okay.
So
chaplain, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, so the Continental Army, first chaplain corps was 1775. Why it came about here is, I want you to think about, put yourself in 1775. The official war has really not happened yet, but you've got this skirmish and thing going on up in Boston.
Right.
And there became a siege over Boston. So thousands of local militia came out of the woodworks to siege Boston, the British occupation of Boston. So in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Continental Congress is meeting to discuss these things and wonder who can we put in charge of the army. The humble George Washington shows up. He's very humble. He is a humble man.
Yes.
Shows up in full uniform, the Congress, just to say, well, gosh, who should we put in charge of this army? Hey, how about this man right here? So George Washington is appointed commander-in-chief. So he makes his way to Boston. And what he sees is pretty appalling. He sees thousands of men, young men sitting around. What will they be doing when they're idle, young guys?
Yeah, drinking.
18, 19, gambling, drinking, getting in trouble.
Cursing.
So Washington's in charge of this army. So what he understands is Washington's a very proper man.
Right.
He likes proper etiquette. He likes discipline and order and morality. So he realized that we get this army in shape, we also need morality. And so he requests to Congress to appoint chaplains to the army and pay the chaplains.
Oh, okay. So right away.
They allow chaplains. So eventually, on the high end is about one chaplain per regiment.
Okay.
With the rank of a captain.
That was great. I had a great conversation over there with the chaplain, discussing a little theology, a little war theology. This camp is obviously going to be here throughout the weekend, so we'll have plenty more time to come back and talk to these fellows. It looks like one of the screenings or one of the lectures has led out of the high school. They're using the high school auditorium for a lot of the events that are going on at the film festival. So this is kind of probably the perfect time to make my escape, go pick up Allie, and get started on our own agenda for the day. But I have a feeling that the sheer gravity of Revolutionary War soldiers all dressed up like this is just going to suck me right back over to the high school in a little bit. I actually don't even want to leave yet. I'd actually prefer to stay out here, even as cold and windy as it still is this morning. But Allie and I were invited to a fancy lunch, or a luncheon. Oh, I don't think I've ever used the word luncheon in common parlance before. Back over at the Beyond the Battle Museum, something I don't think I can film and show you guys, but something I do not want to miss. Plus, I don't see any latrines out here, so I think I'm gonna ski-daddle out of the army and run off and get myself a wife. It's hard to pull away, and I can't believe I've actually been standing out here for 2 hours with these guys. It's just fascinating. It was nice to get a little taste of the revolution this morning before crossing town again. All right, we eventually made it back to the Gettysburg Beyond the Battle Museum for a very fancy luncheon with the guest of honor, Ken Burns. We have the president of the American Battlefield Trust introducing him. Ken Burns is in the room. And then he gave an absolutely amazing little speech, which I'm sure that Gettysburg History and the Adams County Historical Society got on camera at a much better angle than I did, but pretty amazing.
Mr. President. It's so good to have the first one here with us today. Sort of watching over. We don't have a country without George Washington. George Washington does a super duty for us. He reminds us of our fallibility as a human being. He reminds us of our greatness as a human being. And he understood long before a lot of the other founding fathers that he had to convince people from Georgia and people from New Hampshire, where I live, that they weren't from separate countries, but they were actually this new thing called Americans. And he did that. I've said for the last several years that I make films about the U.S., but I also make films about us. That is to say, the lowercase two-letter plural pronoun, all of the intimacy of us and we and our, and all of the majesty and complexity, contradiction and even controversy of the U.S. And it's been an amazing experience for 50 years to work in that space. But the thing that I know is that there is no them. there's only us. And whenever you see someone creating a language, try to remember that there's only us. Try to convince them there's only us. Anybody remember from high school? I'm sure David can contribute because he knows what the Latin motto is of the United States. E pluribus unum, which is out of many words.
He was referring, by the way, in his speech to that fella in the blue over there who plays George Washington in Hamilton. Got a lot of other notables in the room, both history notables and actors and producers and filmmakers, because obviously this is a film festival. It did feel weird being in here, though.
Yeah.
So strange. Probably the Steven Spielberg of documentary filmmakers. And I know that's not everybody's bag. Most people this November and December were waiting for Stranger Things to finish up. I was waiting for Ken Burns' American Revolution series. And if you're one of those people, this is an astounding room to be in. Thank you, Gettysburg Film Festival, for letting me in the door. There's a pretty wild crowd in there when Ken Burns was trying to make his escape. A few people got some fun pics. We were not among them, but it was pretty neat to be in the same room with Ken Burns. Not my normal everyday experience. It's a big hero of mine, so that was pretty neat. Anyway, we rushed downstairs to get outside before every single one of these cars tries to leave the premises. And now that I've got Allie, and we had our Ken Burns luncheon up here, time to head back out across the Gettysburg battlefield and back over to the high school again. I'm starting to feel like a human ping pong ball. Kind of makes it fun though. Hey, look at this on the way back to the high school. There are our boys! Freedom! They're off to fight the British, and they're causing quite a little traffic jam. I was not expecting them to be going into town like that. Maybe they're going to get a pizza. Nobody wants to eat hardtack all day when there's pizza around. Oh no, it's not just the horses going for pizza. Everybody must be breaking down and going for pizza. Because it looks like, except for a few brave last men standing, that they're actually breaking up the Living History Camp for the day. Yeah, it's only 2 p.m., so wow, it's already 2 p.m. What the heck? This day is just flying by. Well, I'm glad I was out here this morning then. See, look at that. Early bird gets the salted cod, or whatever these guys ate for a snack. Luckily, they'll be out here tomorrow, because Allie missed the whole thing this morning. I had to let her sleep in sometime. Anyway, we're back out at the high school now, which, by the way, is massive. I mean, look at the size of this place. It's at least 3 stories tall, and it's as wide as 2 hospitals. It also has a heck of an auditorium inside where they're having a lot of the different panel discussions for the various films and showing some of the films at the Gettysburg Film Festival. And the luncheon we were just at is something that we were invited to at the last second. This is something we planned on being at. There are several panel discussions featuring Ken Burns as one of the speakers, and can't wait to check it out. It's a little surreal for me. Normally, when I'm making videos about history, right, I'm out in a field or I'm out on the side of the road somewhere or looking at some old abandoned building, telling a whole story. Very unusual for me, and it's very unusual for me to be in this position where I'm here as a spectator to learn. It's my first year out at the film festival, so I'm getting my bearings. Look at the size of this freaking high school. If I get a chance to come back next year, I'll know what's going on. I'll know what the vibe is. But this is good, because if I get a chance to come back next year, I'll have some understanding of what happens at these things. Anyway, the panel we're going to go see now is Ken Burns, joined on stage by General Stanley McChrystal. And the subject is waging the War of Independence. At least it got a little warmer out here, as you can tell by my accoutrement, or my vestments, as I guess I should have said. And look at this. Speaking of vibes, they really brought the vibes out here today. All right, we're going into this high school auditorium. See what it's like in there. I think this high school's property might be bigger than Disneyland. It's huge. Oh, wow. They've got the concessions going strong in here. But look at this, a whole American Revolution experience. It's like a miniature museum set up in the hallway over here. On the way to and from the restrooms, man. Hey, look at this, it's Mickey Mouse. Some of these trophies right over here. Walt Disney World, Disney Performing Arts trophies. I come all the way from Anaheim and I still can't get rid of Mickey Mouse. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. This is about 400 times the size of my high school auditorium. That is a huge crowd, and this event is so popular, even Benjamin Franklin is out here. Dr. freaking Franklin. He had priority seating, you know. Of course they're gonna let one of our founding fathers in first, but it's taking him a while to make his way up to the front. Okay, we've got to find some seats. I'll let you guys know what happens. All right, we lucked out. We have little media badges. We have credentials, and they had a few seats reserved for media. So here we are. And somehow Allie found the popcorn. She's going to be watching Ken Burns and a U.S. General and munching on popcorn, which is just perfect. Dude, the Gettysburg Film Festival is huge. Running around for the past 2 days, I had no idea just how many people were out here for this event. You know? This is usually what happens to me. I usually try to dodge the main event and go and choose my own adventure. And I was missing out on all of this. Amazing. Anyway, Ken Burns is going to take the stage in a few minutes. I'm going to learn.
Internationally acclaimed documentary filmmaker, Ken Burns.
There he is. Ken Burns. All right, I'm going to go do some learning. See you guys when the presentation is over.
Thank you. We're going to be spending a lot of time together, so let's just conserve our energies. I am so excited to be with you this afternoon.
Both Ken and Rick have educated me on the revolution probably more than any other two people.
For the most part, blacks, women, indigents, Native Americans. So trying to tease out what actually happened from the historical record is made all the more complicated by the fact that there is so little left of those who contributed.
War doesn't really change the nature of the war. At the end of the day, war is between people. We're sometimes mesmerized by the technology, or somebody gets a map and shows big movements.
Everybody enjoy the rest of the Gettysburg Film Festival.
Dude, that was awesome. That was amazing, and that was just one of the many, 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 many presentations here at the Gettysburg Film Festival. Very inspirational. I would assume all these talks will be online very soon. Definitely worth your time to see if you can catch any of the replays, but super special, super cool to be here in person. Look at the size of this auditorium. I'm still impressed. Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, this is all the stuff I constantly watch, right, online. I'm always watching lectures and panels and things like this. But rarely ever am I in a position to be in the room. And much like with live music, there's a big difference between seeing it live and in person and feeling it and watching it online. So that was very, very cool. All right, we might be in a little bit of trouble here because the entire audience, that huge audience, is all emptying out now. There's this little gap in the program between different panels with Ken Burns on them, another one of which we would like to see tonight. Sort of re-provision ourselves with food and drink. And I have a feeling if we don't get out of here quick enough, that whole entire road is gonna be full of all of these cars. Our first attempt to get me a gluten-free pizza from Mama Ventura's in downtown Gettysburg yesterday failed. Apparently a lot of other gluten-free freaks like me are in town right now, but they said they're gonna resupply today. So that's where we're going next. We're gonna give it a shot. There's a little bit of irony to Gettysburg. It occurs to me now that Robert E. Lee and the Confederate troops were just the first invasion in Gettysburg, and it's pretty much been constantly invaded ever since by tourists, history nerds, field trippers, filmmakers, authors, documentarians. The works. All right, we've got 3 hours of the next presentation. George Washington, the indispensable man. So it's time for pizza. Pizza! All right, well, somehow we got through the minor traffic jam before the major traffic jam and back to the Diamond. Lincoln Square, center of town. I'm pretty stoked to try this pizza. If we can get one, that is, from over here at Mama Ventura. By the way, I've noticed so many more stores open today. I thought yesterday was Friday. I've been very, very confused and bamboozled ever since we were first arrived here on the East Coast. Today is Friday, and not just any Friday. Today is Western Good Friday, which means Western Easter is this weekend. So it's very, very busy indeed. It's going to be even busier this weekend out here in Gettysburg as the crowds show up and the weather gets warmer, but I can smell this soap store. Must have walked past this 5 times. I don't remember this being open before because I could smell that soap on the breeze. Gettysburg smells clean today. Okay, we're going in. Mama Ventura. Let's try the pizza. Now I'm worried if they're open. It's so quiet in here. Suspiciously quiet. I have bad luck with small town stuff, like figuring out when things are open and when they're not open. See if my good luck holds today. Nope, turns out we got seated just fine. Now to see if pizza is on the menu. Definitely a big change of pace from running around all over town today. Just sipping my cappuccino here. Trying to be nice and chill. Trying to behave. Trying to mimic the energy, trying to match the energy of Allie. Peaceful. What?
Mine spilled.
So you're the Justin today, and I'm the Allie. Oh, who did spill?
It spilled when she brought it.
Don't blame the waitress. We know it was you. Oh, heck yeah, and look what just arrived. It smells so good. Are you jealous? You can't have any of that. You got pasta coming. Oh, yeah. Ooh. I'm so full now. When they asked if I needed a box, I thought they meant for me. Because I'm almost dead. Well, that was nice. See, I normally don't film food, but we never get to eat somewhere together like this, so it's kind of nice. That was good. I just have one question. What the fork? I feel like I'm way less hyper than normal today, but I think that's the Ken Burns effect. I think it's illegal to be hyper in the same town as Ken Burns. Something so calm about Mr. Burns. I'm in a little bit of a pizza coma. I'm feeling very sleepy. I don't normally eat during the daylight like this. Anyway, I gotta admit, when Andrew invited me to the Gettysburg Film Festival, I was like, how do you film a film festival? I didn't know what to think or what to expect or whether or not I would like it. But I'm having a whale of a time! You gotta say it like that. You gotta say, whale! It's the more fun way. Especially happy now that the sun is out and it's a little warmer. Whew, well, while the weather is nice, I'm gonna try to walk off some of this pizza over here. The weather is way too nice right now not to enjoy. Just the right temperature. Nice, cool, light breeze finally. It's beautiful. Plus, if you have an alley, you'll know this. It's always good to take your alley for a walk. Speaking of alleys, or owls, I just wanted to come up here overlooking Pickett's Charge to see this. I don't know if I've ever showed this before. This is the memorial to the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the sort of Veterans Association for veterans of the Civil War on the Union side, obviously. Why this fella has got a GAR hat. See that? The GAR logo right there, and a GAR badge, Grand Army of the Republic. And although he's not named on the monument, this sculpture is of a fella named Albert Henry Woolson, the last survivor of the Union Army, who died about 40 days or a little more than that before this memorial was dedicated. He lived until 1956, which is crazy. He died at 106 years old, and he's memorialized here in bronze for all eternity on the Gettysburg battlefield. Even though, although he was a Union veteran, he neither fought at Gettysburg nor any other battle, for that matter. Al Woolson was a Union drummer boy who I think joined at 14, right as the war was ending, if I'm remembering it correctly, and never did see a battle. But now he sits here looking out over a battlefield forever and ever. He was the last Union Army veteran of the Civil War. Some people call this the Last Survivor Monument. Oh, wait a minute, his name is on here. Senior Vice Commander-in-Chief of the GAR, Albert Woolson of Duluth, Minnesota. That's where my Uncle Lou was from. World War II veteran, 5th Armored Division, tank commander, recapturer of Germany, a Serbian from Duluth. Helped found a church, actually, a Serbian Orthodox church down in the valley in LA. Not Albert Woolson, I'm still talking about my Uncle Lou. Uncle Lou Chubich. He is very missed, very, very missed. It's weird to think we're losing all the World War II guys, and, you know, if we're lucky enough to live that long, we're gonna live in a world with the last World War II veteran. That is a strange thing to think about, because when I was a kid, you know, my grandpa and all his friends, my great aunts and uncles, they were all around during World War II. I was kind of, you know, partially raised by that generation, and now they're slipping away from us. All right, well, the wind is rising. The sun is going down. By the way, Allie just said, this is like my dream. I want a little white house by a big creepy tree. on a little farm. I said, there's probably not enough closet space for you. As tiny as you are, you need a lot of closet space. I found out the hard way. We're going to that George Washington discussion panel talk, screening, whatever it is tonight. But I figure since you can't really film those things, right? They're already filming them for Gettysburg History, I presume, or American Battlefield Trust, one or the other. I'm sure they'll end up online. No point dragging you guys back to high school with us tonight. So this is where I'll leave you, right here on the Gettysburg battlefield, overlooking the scene of Pickett's charge and the Union lines up here on Cemetery Ridge. There's George Meade out there on his horse, looking across at Robert E. Lee and the Virginia Memorial or Monument, whatever it's called, off in the woods over yonder. It's a little breezy, but it's absolutely gorgeous out here. See, that's what I want to do. I want to ride my bike around the battlefield. There's just one problem. My bike is in California. I don't want to ride a stranger's bike. All right, say goodbye, Allie. Bye-bye. Everybody, there are links down below in the description if you want to keep me on the road this year, checking out more historical areas, especially up and down Route 66 on the 100th anniversary, or the centennial celebration, I should say, of that road's founding in 1926. You can join our Patreon. You could buy one of these sick R hats, the Kindred Spirit. The R stands for Adventure Hat. We got hot sauce, books, and a whole lot more at store.randomland.com. All this is down in the description below. That's why we put it there, but does anybody look there? I don't know. We'll be home in a couple days to ship out all those orders. But for now, for today, we've done our duty. And you, especially since you made it all the way to the very end, good job. Can go home and sleep well. See you next time. This is cool, just after our walk, coming by the Dobbins house. And look at that. The horses are tied up here. They have the reenactors are all taking over the Dobbin house today. Built in 1776, so it's perfectly appropriate. Look at these soldiers out here. Did I say the British? I just keep thinking that because of the hats. Because remember that movie, The Patriot? It's a whole thing, never mind.
Typically people think, oh, you sleep like a couple men like this. Well, in modern times you can make it as comfortable as you want. But basically you laid like this. So you'd have up to 6 men in a typical tent.
I don't like that.
And
that's about 5 too many.
Across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is a term where spooning comes into play, where somebody has to rotate, everybody shift, everybody spoon, and that was it.
So the Revolutionary War soldiers, they invented spooning.
Yeah, well, it probably goes back to ancient times.
Oh, okay. So there's always been spooning. Allie is a little freak, a freaky CT, my CT. In my chest hair with the cheesy from the BT. What? What's wrong with chest hair and ZD songs? It worked really well at the end of the last video. I think people enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't check the comments or anything. I never do, but I'm just assuming people enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed singing it. E.T. maziti. Cheesy in the chest hair pizza, eat the ziti. Right? You know what I'm saying? Let's go this way. Yeah. Bye, everybody.